All right. Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us here today. Super excited to see everyone. I've been watching all of the hellos and comments in chat. Super awesome to have you all here. Welcome to my virtual studio where we are going to be talking about something really exciting today. This is our first webinar of 2021, and I think it's appropriate that is on the hot topic of what everyone wants to know about coming into this year, and that is all about Pearl Nano. So we're going to be doing some live demonstration talking about it, as well as I'm going to do a little bit of an unboxing as well and show you what it's going to look like when you receive your Pearl Nanos and what's in the box. So I have that kind of set up off to the side here. We'll get to that. Of course, a big part of this is going to be the Q&A. So we have the Q&A panel. Some people have already thrown some questions in there, which is awesome. Super excited to answer those for you. So if you have questions, make sure to put them in the Q&A panel. If you put them into chat, I may miss them, but some of our staff may catch them and answer you in text form. But if you want me to see it, please put it into the Q&A panel. We'll also have a number of polls that we'll put up throughout the webinar today, which the first one should be going up there just asking, what sector you're in, and just because that gives us a good sense of who's interested in this type of a product and gives us a little bit of insight as to where we might see it being used in the coming months as we ship them to you guys. So we're very excited about that. Let's see, I'm just checking here on chat a couple of things. I still see a few people rolling in here, so I'm delaying and pausing for dramatic intro because I do see quite a few people still joining us, which is awesome. These are excellent number, guys. Really excited for that. So this is good stuff. Lots of people saying hi from all over the world. Lots of people in Canada, people in Sweden, people in Belgium and the Netherlands, and all over the U.S. So this is great. Great to see everyone. Great to have you here. I hope everyone is well and being safe out there. Some of the people watching are definitely colder than they're expected, and all my Canadian friends who I see saying hi in chat are exactly as cold as they always expect. So I'm going to take a sip of my very Canadian Coca-Cola here, and then we'll get started. All right. Ooh, some good questions. Good questions coming in already. So this is going to be a good one, guys. This is going to be a good one. All right, let's jump into our slides and talk a little bit about what our agenda for today is. First, we are going to kind of go over the Pearl Nano in a high-level flyby overview. After that, we will go into Nano's place within the Pearl product family, and I can see some questions already coming into that level. So we're going to cover that for sure. And then we're going to look at some of the key Pearl Nano use cases and where we anticipate a lot of this to work with this product. I will do the unboxing as well, and then of course we will get to the Q&A. We're kind of throwing the unboxing in here, kind of last minute. We didn't really have that planned. So I actually may start with that. I may end with that. And maybe there's my first on-the-fly poll. Who would like to see unboxing first? Who would like to see that last before Q&A? You have a few seconds to throw that into chat before I make a decision. Before we dive into the overview, let's see what you say. We're a little interactive on the fly decision making here to see what the people want. But again, some very good questions coming in here. I'm excited for this. Some of these I can answer really quickly. I'm going to answer Steven's ones really quickly here. Am I using Nano for this live stream? I'm actually not. I'm actually using my Pearl Mini for this. But we could, it wouldn't really be any different other than I just don't have enough Nanos to show you on camera and run it at the moment. Gareth also asked, will this be available to view post-event? Yes, it will. We always post the VOD after the fact, so you can see it. See a lot of people do the unboxing last, so we're going to do that. All right, so into the slides, and apparently my other second camera SRT needs to be restarted anyways. So we'll do that last. Let's dive in. Overview on Pearl Nano. What is one of the things we're most excited about for this product is that Pearl Nano is designed to be a very small, compact, lightweight, easy to move around, easy to integrate in various different physical scenarios, fine-tuned for a professional environment, and yet tiny little box. And we've tried to pack as much in there as we can, which is where the idea of that, and this will come up several times throughout the webinar today, of the perfect fit encoder. So full HD video encoder for streaming, recording, also has some splitting function built in, and of course has some scaling functions built in. So we could do a lot on this one little box. It has 2 video inputs on it, an SDI and an HDMI input, and we can actually use both of those inputs at the same time. Probably one of the most unique things about Pearl Nano in the market space in which it's targeted is that it has this 2.2-inch front screen built into it, along with the button controls, dedicated controls for start-stop streaming and recording, but also menu navigation buttons, so that you can actually do quite a lot of configuration, monitoring, and some settings from that front screen. So that's something that's quite different in this category of encoder. Around the back, in addition to those inputs, we also have 2 XLR line level audio inputs. Again, professional audio, something you don't see in many devices in this category. Has the HDMI pass-through port as well as an HDMI output, and we'll kind of look at those in a little more detail later on. It can be powered in one of 2 different ways. It comes with a power brick, which you'll see when we do the unboxing. And that's just a 12 volt DC power brick. Or you could power it using PoE+. So either one of those works. And this gives us a wider range of integration options. So if you think about those of you who might be using PTZ cameras that are powered over PoE, you could include a Pearl Nano into these things that, that switch could power Nano typically on PoE as well if it's PoE plus and be able to do that. And then recording media-wise, you have 2 options. You have an SD card slot on the front, and then you also have an expansion bay underneath for an SSD, for an M.2 SATA SSD. So you have options on how you're going to kind of integrate these different pieces, depending on what your needs are. And of course, if you're streaming, you don't need to populate the storage at all. So what does this typically look like in kind of our signal flow? Well, we would connect our video sources, maybe a camera over SDI and a laptop over HDMI in this example, an audio mixer over XLR, bring that all into Pearl Nano, stream and record at the same time. Our recording could be going to the SD card or that SSD if you install one. And then, of course, our output, live streamed, could be RTMP, HLS, DASH, SRT, depending on what CDN you're using, what stream types it supports. We also have the HDMI program out. So there's one of the HDMI outputs is assignable, so it could reflect our program channel. In addition, we have that HDMI pass-through, which is a 0 latency pass-through of the HDMI input. So this means it's great that we could put in line with maybe a display that's showing our slides from that laptop. We don't necessarily need an additional splitter to accomplish this. So this is a great piece to put in the chain, in the line for a small scale setup. That screen on the front is a big thing here too as well. And that's all about controlling things quickly at the fingertips. So the front screen and buttons there allow start-stop recording and streaming. There's dedicated buttons for those. You can see the confidence monitor on that display. And then you can access some basic configuration settings. And of course, device information. So those of you who are familiar with the Pearl Mini or Pearl 2 will be familiar with some of this. in terms of, you can look at device information, you can access network settings, and look at a variety of other things. And Pearl Nano is really, no different, besides the fact that there's buttons instead of a touch screen and the screen is smaller. But there's a ton of information you can do there that can really help you get it up and running out of the box. I think that's going to help people immensely in terms of, whether it's just basic network stuff or looking at audio levels, all these things being available on that front screen. The other thing is that although Nano is small and is not necessarily, nearly as large or as capable as maybe its bigger brother in something like Pearl 2, you could still do a lot to use Nano to elevate your video productions even in smaller scales. So it does have a customized layout designer where you can build a picture-in-picture or side-by-side layout using the HDMI and SDI inputs. You can include some branding with images, text overlays, custom background behind it as an image to really improve, the look and feel of your production on still something that's a very small and simple basic device. So, we've tried to make sure it's still extremely flexible and customizable in the ways that you can leverage it, for such a small device. The other thing is the flexible storage. I'm sorry, I was glancing at chat there for a moment, and I see my colleague Greg, who is the product manager for Pearl Nano, answering a bunch of questions there, so appreciate that on the fly and joining in the chat. Flexible storage is a great thing about Pearl Nano, and this is one of the things that, weirdly, I'm kind of excited about. Like its bigger brother in the Pearl Mini, it does have the SD card slot for that storage. Like all Pearl products, it can do automatic file transfers to an external USB drive or a local server, a NAS, something like that. But the other thing, and this is the one that excites me the most, is that it has that expansion bay for a user-supplied M.2 SATA SSD, meaning you pop open that hatch, the M.2 slot is there, and you just install whatever SATA SSD you want into that bay, basically. So if you need a 500 gig SSD, then install that. If you don't need that much and 128 is going to do, install that. And it's going to be there as built-in permanent storage. You don't have to worry about someone ejecting an SD card or whatever. That's a big help. And I think that's going to be something that a lot of our customers, especially within the live event space, are really going to go for. I'm really curious to see what size will end up being the most common one that people choose for that. The other thing, of course, like all Pearl models, is leveraging those powerful integrations we have in the family. So we have the deep integration with content management systems, Kaltura and Panopto. Just like the other Pearl models, this means that you could install a Nano in something like a classroom for lecture capture, and it could essentially just be sitting there, ignored, fully automated, downloading a schedule, doing what it's supposed to do, and sending the assets back to the CMS where it needs to be without really any direct user interaction. And that's, I think, could be something really exciting to see how people leverage that, and we can't wait for our education customers to get their hands on these and start using them in this way. So these types of integrations, this is there, it's built in out of the box. This isn't an additional cost or anything like that. There are competitors in this space where if you want to integrate with these platforms, you do have to pay an additional price. With Nano, you won't. It is included in the price. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing, like the rest of the Pearl line, is making sure that it is equipped for ease of use from a networking perspective, but is also not sacrificing any of the things that larger companies, schools, and people like that need from security standpoints. This means that we can integrate Nano in a bunch of different ways for network security. It supports, your basic DHCP automatic IP address assignments, or static IP address assignments. You could integrate it within your corporate domain using LDAP so that people log in using domain credentials. But it also has the built-in roles as well, admin, operator, and viewer. And we've recently enhanced what you can choose or not allow operators to do. In addition to that, we've made sure that all the Pearls, and Nano is no exception, has the highest level of network security that we can really build into these kind of AV devices. So it has the capability of using 802.1x network access control. That's something that is coming up more and more often as a mandate for any network devices being plugged in to be able to do that. You also have the options of using HTTPS, SSL, including using your own certificates for these things. So from a security standpoint, when the IT guy asks, does it have 802.1x? Does it have HTTPS? And can I integrate it with the domain? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. And those are important checkboxes when you're talking to the IT team. Another big part about Nano, of course, like the other Pearl products, is that you can integrate it with Epiphan Cloud. Now, we've done a bunch of things on Epiphan Cloud back towards the end of the year, and there's a ton more stuff that we're going to be talking about with cloud coming up. But Epiphan Cloud is a cloud-based platform, as the name would suggest, from Epiphan, where you can basically pair all of your Pearl devices and manage them and monitor them remotely. There's a lot you can do at the free account level, and then there is a paid account level of Epiphan Cloud where you can dive a little deeper. I'm not going to go too deep on that today, but if you're interested in learning more about Epiphan Cloud, we got a lot of stuff coming up on that, and we have created some things already. So check out epiphan.cloud for more info there. But this is a way that, if you have a fleet of Nanos and you want to be able to monitor them, stop them remotely, that kind of thing, Epiphan Cloud gives you an easy central administration point to do a lot of the routine things. So I definitely recommend checking that out. So, big question, and there were some people asking this, and I'm going to kind of scroll through things here a little bit and make sure I answer that, but is where does Nano fit within the Pearl product family? So I'm just going to quickly scroll through because someone did ask that question. So I'm going to mark that as being answered. And then see if there was anything else that was similar before we kind of move on. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a couple similar to this. So one of them is Franklin asking, is Nano kind of a lower end solution to the Mini? And as we're about to go through where it fits, yes, Nano represents the entry into the Pearl product family. And so because of that, a lot of people are asking these questions, but because of that, you are going to see that Nano doesn't necessarily have some of the more advanced features that you would see in a Mini or a Pearl 2. So let's go through and answer this question. There was one there, what's the difference? So what is the difference? Well, this is what the Pearl family looks like, top to bottom. Pearl Nano at the entry of the family, the perfect fit for simple streaming and recording scenarios. And we'll dive into what those use cases might look like in a little bit. What do we mean by that perfect fit? Pearl Mini is in the middle of the line. This is a simplified video production box. You notice there's some differences in what I said there. Pearl Mini adds some additional features like multi-layout switching, more inputs, and some other things, and of course that larger touchscreen. And then at the top end, Pearl 2 is that much larger all-in-one production system. Many more inputs, more features like NDI, chroma keying, that sort of thing. And of course, just more encoding capable at the same time. So that's the family, right? You have the entry level with Pearl Nano. you have the middle with Pearl Mini, and then you have the top end kind of all packed in there with Pearl 2. So that's kind of the way it looks. So again, Pearl Nano is not replacing these other two. It is only filling out a gap that was in the family, in the line, at the entry level, where Pearl Mini might have been a little bit overkill, and Pearl 2 definitely was. And again, when we get into the use cases, you'll see why that might be. All of the models in the Pearl line come from the same philosophy of design and use, right? This is something that we focus on for all of these products. We want to make sure that all Pearl models are versatile, reliable, easy to use, and are built with professional quality. And so that's true from the bottom to the top in terms of, how we look at these products, how we design them, how we develop them, and ultimately what we deliver with them. So none of this is being sacrificed in any of the models, really. So if we want to look at the key use cases, where would we use Pearl Nano? Where are some of the big deals? Where is some of this really important? Well, as I mentioned before, we envision Nano to be that perfect fit for smaller scale live event production, where you don't necessarily need a huge range of fancy features. You're looking for the smallest footprint and a simplified workflow in a cost-effective way. It's also the great fit for the streamer or recorder add-on to an existing workflow. So maybe your studio has an existing production system. You have a big solution already, but what you're lacking is a high quality dedicated encoder. In which case, Pearl Nano is kind of that perfect fit to put at the end of the chain. We take that SDI out from your main production workflow, bring it in to Nano, and then Nano handles all that heavy lifting of doing the streaming and recording to get it out to your destination. And then third, one of the things, and I can tell you, I've already had some super, super exciting conversations on this one, using Pearl Nano as a remote contribution encoder. Primarily, just the way things have been going, SRT obviously represents a big way forward for contribution encoding. And with Pearl Nano supporting SRT, it means that it's a device that is the right size and capability, that you could send it to a remote person, small enough to ship very easily. They could just unpack it. It's maybe paired to your Epiphan cloud account so that you can remotely control it. You can it could be pre-configured. All they have to do is power it on and get their sources connected. You ship them a small camera and a microphone, and they're ready to go. Get SRT streaming back into your primary workflow, which is exactly how we do these webinars, and then on from there. And I mean, you could send a bunch of these out to a variety of remote contributors. They could all be bringing in SRT to your central point, mix and switch them together, and then have your final production that way. Again, that's how we do these webinars. So as a remote SRT contribution encoder, Nano is a perfect fit for that scenario. So again, I brought this slide up before, but what might that look like? Maybe it's 2 inputs, maybe it's only 1. Our audio of a variety of different types. And again, I talked about the XLR, but there are other options back there, including USB audio as well. We could connect just a USB microphone to the back of the Nano, again, to simplify the workflow. And then we have our recording locally as a backup, and then we can also have our stream going out into our workflow, whether that's direct to the CDN or whether that's to another system that's then remixing it with other sources and back out. But of course, again, we need a larger confidence monitor, connect an in-room display to that HDMI pass-through, or something to the assignable HDMI program out, that kind of thing. It gives us a lot of flexibility in the environments in which we can connect it. The other one, of course, is that end of the chain, right? We need to add it on to an existing production setup. So whatever it is in front of it, usually we're talking about professional production setups. So SDI is there, but HDMI would work as well. But we take that, we feed it into Nano, and that's going to give us a very capable and powerful encoder to get our live stream in a variety of different stream types sent out at the same time. And I did say same time there for a reason, because Nano, although it's a single encoded output, can actually stream to multiple platforms at the same time. So there's some possibilities that, if you need Facebook and YouTube at the same time, and you have the bandwidth to support it, these are things that you could be doing, from a single Nano. But of course, you also have more advanced streaming protocols like HLS, DASH, and SRT to integrate into a wider variety of CDNs that will support those protocols. So breaking outside the RTMP box, I suppose. And then, of course, the contribution encoder. And that's, what I'm doing today. I am using a Pearl Mini, but I could be using a Pearl Nano for that. Like I said, I just decided to use my Nano as a prop instead of as my production. But same idea. We send this out to someone, they connect a camera, they connect their audio. Pearl Nano does all the encoding over SRT back to your production system. Of course, we would encourage you to use a Pearl 2 as your central production system. That's what we do, where you could bring in multiple SRT streams at the same time, mix them together, and then send our final production stream out to the final destination, as well as doing recording. So this is something we're pretty excited for, and really interested to see how this changes the game, really. So adding the two products together, Pearl 2 for production and Pearl Nano for contribution, how does that work? Pearl 2 can bring in up to 6 SRT inputs. And then, of course, it can send out multiple SRT or other stream outputs as well. And we can also have multiple encoded programs. So, for example, for today's webinar, we have our mixed and switched program feed going out of a Pearl 2 into Crowdcast for all you fine people. But that Pearl 2 is also taking ISO recordings of my SRT stream at the same time. So that's where Pearl 2 can really shine as being a great centralized hardware hub for this type of production. And then, of course, Pearl Nano, as we've been talking about, means that, we could take in an SRT input, and then we also have an SRT output. And it is a single video program, but it could be made up of multiple inputs if we need it to be, or just a single input, and of course audio as well. The other part, and I touched on this with Epiphan Cloud, is that with Pearls and Epiphan Cloud, you have the possibility of creating an end-to-end control for that larger SRT config ecosystem. Your remote producer, just like mine are doing today, could be remotely controlling that remote contributor at Pearl Nano and remotely controlling a Pearl 2 sitting in a location where bandwidth is much larger and stronger, and not trying to run it out of your house. This is what we've been doing for nearly a year now, and it is a very effective workflow for remote production. And so we expect to see a lot more of this as we continue into the future. And Pearl Nano and Pearl 2 are great pairings for this type of setup when you leverage things like Epiphan Cloud. There are other ways through VPNs and such to do this as well. Cloud just makes it really easy. Okay, so we're going to get to questions here in a moment. I've seen a ton of chat, which is awesome. I'm going to have to scroll back through it, but I also see that my colleagues, Greg and George, have also been answering a ton of it, which is great. In the Q&A panel, there is an upvote tool. If you look through all those questions, if you see someone else's question that they've asked that you feel is relevant or is the same one you were going to ask, please use that update tool, as that changes the priority in my list, and I will answer those in order. But first, before I do that, I'm going to just step off camera for just a second here and see if I can get my second camera reactivated and go through our unboxing. So give me 1 second here. And then I'll just wait to see if my producers tell me that that is being received. And I'll take another sip of my Coca-Cola while I wait for that. Okay. All right. Just bear with me for one moment here, folks. This was going to be a fun experiment, and I am determined to have this experiment work. My plan was actually to stream SRT from my phone to give you a close-up of this. But it was running awesome. So we were going to try a different port. Yeah, the High Vision app kind of it's cut out a couple of times, but I wanted to use it instead of Rivet. We've used Rivet as an app as well, and I wanted to use the High Vision app. So Cameron, I know you can hear me. If you can give me that port one more time. Okay. We're going to try this again. Beauty. All right. So that small hiccup is resolved. Joel Ramos is just asking for my phone, are you using NDI? No, I'm not. I am using SRT. So this is a fun experiment. Honestly, has not much to do with Pearl Nano. I'm using SRT from the High Vision Play app on my phone over LTE to use a second camera because I just simply don't have enough bandwidth to do 2 streams, but I didn't want to end my primary camera stream. So I'm playing with this. So you should see my my box here. This is how you will receive a Pearl Nano. This is the outer box that you will get. And when we open that up and get rid of that, you are going to see this very beautiful packaging. So the packaging here, super nice, very solid box, a lot like the Pearl Mini box actually. And you see the perfect fit streamer and recorder. When we open this guy up, inside we are going to have all of our fun stuff. So let's see. This is actually the first time I'm unboxing this. I'm not going to lie. So inside we have a little welcome card, which has all kinds of information in there, how to get your quick setup going, talking about formatting your storage, things like that. Underneath that, we have, let's see if I can get this out here, Pearl Nano itself. So I'm going to set that aside for just a moment while we kind of open up the rest of this here. On this compartment, we have the DC power brick that we ship with it. This is a universal power supply. So you'll notice that there's a North American plug already on there. But then there's also an array of different regional plugs for Europe, the UK, and so on. All of that is included in the box. It's just switching out those universal plates. So that's what comes in the box. Pretty straightforward. Not you know, a whole lot of noise or action there. And just while I move that, I'm then going to kind of bring this guy back out. So here we go. Pearl Nano. Pearl Nano on the front here, as we were talking about, we have that front screen. We have the array of buttons for recording, streaming, dedicated buttons. These buttons will let us navigate the on-screen menu. We have a headphone jack, just like the other Pearl models, so that we can monitor audio. We have that SD card slot, which has an LED next to it to show you when it's active. On the bottom, we have that hatch for that M.2 SSD. So we can just unscrew that, open it up, and the slot would be underneath. And then on the back side, I did have a picture of this in the slides, but on the back side we have that DC jack for the power supply that's included. We have the USB port, which we can use for USB audio devices or external USB storage. Support for external USB video will be coming. Right now at launch it will just be audio, but it will support webcams and other video devices in the future. This is the programmable, assignable HDMI output port, so this could be our program out. Of course, our gigabit Ethernet supporting PoE+. Our SDI input. Our HDMI pass-through, so this is a direct pass-through from input to HDMI pass-through here, so there's zero latency there. The HDMI input, of course. The audio options with RCA jacks there, so if we need a consumer level signal, we can bring that in. And then we have the two XLR jacks we can use for professional audio. Of course, embedded audio on HDMI and SDI are also supported. So that's kind of the physical tour. There is a little Kensington lock hole here if you need to cable lock your Pearl Nano. Of course, very pretty green and gray sides, and that is Pearl Nano, brought to you by SRT, shot on a Pixel 5. So that's kind of what we are looking at there. So we're going to get to questions here in just a moment. I saw some people asking about the UI. The good news is, and I didn't actually have one set up to show you the UI, because if you are familiar at all with Epiphan Pearl UIs at all, it looks the same. It's the language, the usage, the way it's set up, it's the same. So if you've used a Pearl Mini or a Pearl 2 before, as soon as you log into the Pearl Nano, it's going to look and feel just like home. You're going to be used to it instantaneously. So, that's, I think, a big thing here is that if you're in a mixed environment, you're really going to appreciate that. So just because of the last chat message I saw here, Scott just asking, does Nano support the preview and program out simultaneously? Yes, it does. The HDMI outputs can both be used simultaneously. All right, so let's get into some questions. So the first one, the most voted one here was from Gary, saying, can you explain the Nano switching capability, such as between HDMI and SDI, or is this not possible? Now, a lot of people had comments in here back and forth, but I'm just going to address it for people who maybe didn't read all of that. Pearl Nano does not have live switching the way the larger units, more powerful units do. So you can create a layout that's made up of two inputs, but you cannot have multiple layouts to switch between. So if you're looking for a device that's more standalone, more all-in-one that includes switching, going into something like Pearl Mini or Pearl 2 is what you would be looking for. So Nano can do the picture-in-picture side-by-side in a single layout, but not switching. Again, this is the entry level in the line. If you're looking for something that has more powerful features, there are other models that do offer that. Let's see, the next most voted question here. From Dave Roberts here, if you record and stream at the same time, are there any limitations that now apply, and for example, bit rates? Well, of course, bitrate is, primarily limited by your bandwidth when you're talking about streaming, right? So potentially, because it is a single encode, your record and your stream are the same encode. So yeah, you would want to be trying to strike a balance if you want a high quality record, and not have a ridiculously high bandwidth requirement. Yeah, you would probably have to strike a balance. The good news, if we're talking about HD, you're probably somewhere in that 4 to 5 megabit range for a bit rate, which is still going to look fine in a recording and is going to give you a good quality stream. That are going to do that. So I mean, you can set the bit rate to be whatever you want, like the other Pearl models that could be super high, as high as 50 megabit if you were only recording. But yes, if you're trying to do both at the same time, finding a balance between the two would be important. Question here from Colton, just saying, will it support the captions? Not currently planned. Like the other Pearl models, we don't have a way of supporting embedded captions. That may change in the future, but currently no, unfortunately. Another question here: can you bring in an SRT input alongside the HDMI and SDI? Yes, I suppose you could. I mean, with any devices like this, you do obviously want to pay attention to system load and how much you're doing with it. So yeah, you could. I haven't experimented with that myself yet, but yeah, you could. It would be obviously, instead of, it is designed as a 2 input box maximum. So if you had SRT in, it would be HDMI or SDI generally. So again, there would be some things to experiment with there, but yes, I think you definitely could do that in the right use case if you needed to. The next question here from Ronnie, just saying, will the Nano support USB cameras at launch, or at least in a later upgrade, especially for the Hudley Canvas support? It'd make a great combo for higher ed. At launch, it won't support video, and Greg answered this there as well, and I did mention this. It will come in a firmware update, just not there quite at launch, but that will be there in a future firmware update. Audio will be supported at launch. I've already used that myself with my Blue Yeti Nano, and it worked great. So yeah, it will be there. I don't think we've specifically tested with the Hudley, but we probably could. I think we have an older Hudley camera around somewhere that we could probably play with and see, as we're working on that. But that's part of our kind of standard suite of ones to test out. Question here, and this is a common one we get for all Pearl models. Can Nano output be used as a Zoom input? So technically, not directly, no. The Pearl products are standalone hardware encoders for streaming and recording. They're not capture cards. Where something like Zoom, an application running on a computer, can use a capture card instead of a webcam input. But Zoom is not designed for ingesting third-party streams because it's a conferencing app. So directly, no. Would there be ways of doing it? Yes. You could take the HDMI outputs from a Nano into a capture card into the computer running Zoom. But it kind of would depend on how you have that set up. So not directly, it's not going to mount over USB or anything like that the way capture card does, because it's a standalone encoder. This next question from Alex. Instead of a cut for switching, will Epiphan provide updates for other transitions in the future? Of course, this doesn't apply to Nano, but yes, we are looking at hopefully being able to add some transitions in a future update to Pearl Mini and Pearl 2. It is on the roadmap for those products. Again, does not apply to Nano though. Let's see. Good question here coming in. Is it possible to use the SD card or SSD to play video as an input source, as an overlay? or as another video. Not at launch, and Greg answered this one today. It's something that we're hoping to add in the Pearl family as a feature down the road, but not currently available. It's again something that is on our roadmap of features we would like to add to the Pearl family, but not currently there at the moment. Same person asking, is there a list of webcams that will be compatible? Not yet. And even then, generally, we don't have a specific list because there's just too many models. Generally, in our characterization testing, when we're doing webcam testing, we test with the most popular models like C920 and stuff like that. But of course, there's just way too many models to test them all. So we try to find a good cross section of popular ones and test against those. So, I would expect that when that feature is kind of updated and rolled out for Nano, the first camera that would be tested would be something like the Logitech C920, right? So, whether or not we publish, a list, probably not, but generally speaking, we're building it to be compatible with UVC compliant devices. So if it's UVC compliant, it should absolutely work without an issue. Question here, can I connect a USB audio interface, example, a Focusrite Scarlett to the USB interface? Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, I have tested this. I don't own a Focusrite. I'd like to someday, but I don't currently own a Scarlett. But I have tested it with my Blue Yeti Nano microphone, and it worked great. So again, a USB audio interface that is UAC compliant, the audio version of UVC, should absolutely, work, no problem. I would fully expect support for devices to be the same as it was in Pearl Mini and Pearl 2, and the Scarletts, the Focusrites, absolutely work on those. So yeah, should be no problem. Is a question here from Gareth, is audio delay adjustable when using the XLR? Yes. So the audio delay option is a setting that's available across all Pearl models and is available on all audio interfaces, XLR and embedded HDMI and so on. So yes, the range of minus to plus 300 milliseconds is there on Nano as it is on Mini and Pearl 2 as well. Question here from Mark asking, will the Nano support the busy light for remote streaming indication? Mark, it should. I have not actually tested that. Funny enough, playing with it, I have not tested that myself. I expect yes. The question will be, do you want to use that one USB input for the busy light, or instead something else? But I can test that at another time. Mark, if you want to send us an email asking that question, I'll follow up with you. I'll get my stuff hooked up and see if I could find my busy light wherever I put it, and test that for you. Just send us an email, info@epiphan.com, asking that question, and I'll check that out for you. Another question here from Rohan saying, will this integrate with the Crestron control system? Yes, it will. That we have tested. And I saw someone asking about RS-232 as well. So a little bit of background. Crestron built their own control driver module for the Pearl family of products. Pearl Nano does work with that module. That module is based over HTTP, not RS-232. So we do have an RS-232 API that you could use, and you could use a USB to RS-232 adapter, but you would be doing everything completely from scratch with custom code using our generic RS-232 API commands. My recommendation, as control systems move more towards network base anyways, would, if you're looking at Crestron especially, base it on the driver module they've made. Even if you have to customize it, at least you're starting from a base, and it is a network-based API that they are using for their driver module, and is way more powerful than the RS-232 anyways. But yes, it does work. Will it support chroma keying? No, Pearl Nano does not have chroma keying. I should note neither does Pearl Mini. That's a feature that Pearl 2 has. That requires a lot of processing power to do nicely with a lot of the other things we're doing. It's something that, maybe we'll be able to do. That's a performance characterization question. So, that's something we'll have to see in the future based on performance. There's a bunch of other things that are probably a little more interesting. Let's see. Next question here from Tom. Let's see. I changed my line here. This is a great question. What is it like having a famous older brother like Seth Rogen? Follow up, can I do the laugh? I can't do the laugh. He's not, unfortunately, my brother. And I'm not sure he's that much older than me, if he is at all. I'm going to have to Google that. Someone Google that and pull it up in chat right now. I want to know how old Seth Rogen is and see whether or not he's actually older or younger than me. Things that question you. But no, I do not. Oof. Producer in my ear just told me how old Seth Rogen is. I'm the older brother. Suck it, Seth Rogen. No, I definitely cannot do that laugh. I'm not a stoner. Anyway, back to the real questions. But that was a fun one. Thank you, Colton. Did Epiphan get Kaltura group owner API worked out? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Gerard, exactly. So maybe that's a follow-up question. If you can send us an email on that, I'd be happy to engage with our product managers in that and see if we can flesh that out a bit more, see what you mean by that, and try to see if we can try to accommodate that. I saw this answered already. Some people were talking about this in chat. Is there a 48 volt phantom power on the XLR? Stephen asking that. Unfortunately, no. The XLRs are line level on Nano and not mic level and do not provide phantom power. Let's see, we're just rolling. There's a lot of questions here, guys, so I'm just trying to roll through them here fairly quickly. So I hope we get those all. The other one, this is the one I was about to start answering, was, is it on the roadmap to support two encoding channels, so we can create dual video recording in Kaltura? As far as I'm aware, Tom, no. Really, again, this is a question of what your workflow is. If you're looking for two ISOs in some of the ways that Kaltura and even Panopto sometimes prefer things being set up, Pearl Mini is probably the better choice for that. Pearl Nano's designed as that single encode. So you could have dual video, but it would be mixed at Nano and not mixed at the CMS side with separate ISOs. Arnie just asking, can I stream SRT from a Nano to a Mini and stream from there live? Yeah, you absolutely could. We're today streaming from a Mini to a Pearl 2, but that could be a Nano to a Mini to a Pearl 2 to whatever. All of them support SRT inputs and outputs. So yes, you could do that. Absolutely. Love to see the GUI. Is it something that could be put in? You know what? Let me see if I can. I will see if I can quickly set it up here and try to show the GUI here in the moment. But a question got voted over top of that. So, and what is the price? And I see that Colton put a link to the B&H product page. B&H is going to list that at the US MSRP. So, you know, that is the MSRP price that you will see on B&H. $14.99 is $1,500 basically, is the US MSRP. We sell all Pearl models through our distributors and partners. So depending on where you are regionally, reach out to your more regional localized partner for more local pricing. So those of you watching in Australia, I saw some, reach out to our partner there. If you're watching from Europe, reach out to our European regional partners. We have one in just about every country and every region, and they can give you regional pricing in euros or you know, pounds if you're in the UK, that kind of thing. They will have that localized pricing for you. But yes, the US MSRP is $14.99. That's a great question there. For those who attended the webinar, is there a discount on the price? Sadly, no. I am not authorized to grant such wonderful gifts. I'm so sorry about that. Let's see. Joseph asks actually a really good question. This is a great question here, and this is a very generalized question, but a great question. Jeff's just asking, has anyone thought about making any of the Pearl line Dante enabled? In fact, we have. That is something we have looked at and considered. It is kind of on the bigger picture dream list of things we would like to do. Joseph, we would actually love to hear from you specifically, and send us an email on this. Just send us info@epiphan.com. We would really like to hear more details about your specific Dante workflow. And the reason I ask this is because when we're looking at features like Dante, we want to get a better understanding of how people are actually going to use it. Because I'll be honest, I've had conversations about Dante in the past at trade shows when they were still a thing in person. And usually I would say, we haven't yet, but we might. What are you going to use Dante for? And the answer I usually get back is, well, I'm not actually using it yet. It would just be nice to be there. So it's cool that we want to check a box. Everyone loves to check a stats box, but at the end of the day, if we're going to add it and it's going to get promoted into our list of priorities of features to add, because trust me, we have a lot of things that we get asked about. We would like to get a better understanding of the specific workflows and how people would use it. And that helps us weigh the options. So if you're someone who's using a Dante and you're a Pearl customer and that's something that would help you, we would like to hear from you in terms of how you would use that. Let's see. Oh, the voting keeps changing here. Let's see. Good question here from Thomas. Will the Pearl Nano be rack mountable? Not specifically in the sense of having ears, but as Greg just answered there, it does have, and I'll try and get this up on my main camera, it does have VESA mount holes on the bottom, 75 by 75 VESA mount holes that you could bolt it to something. That could be a shelf, that could be a bracket, something along those lines. Pearl Mini has a similar mount option. It is narrow enough that you could put two side by side on a shelf if you wanted to. So that's something to look at. Let's see. Jonas, I like this question here. Since sending the unit around is one of the use cases you guys recommend for this unit, will there be any sort of travel case available for the Nano? Not at launch. We did have one as an accessory purchase option for Mini. Obviously, a similar case could be used for Nano. I know we looked at a bunch and we didn't find one that really kind of fit without being too big or too small. So that might change in the future, but at the moment at launch, no. But obviously you could buy a small Pelican case with pick and pluck and drop this in there very easily. It's a pretty small, easy device that you could definitely look at getting a case for. Gary just asking here, as this is an entry-level device, I would suggest you make a change, provide two additional canned layouts, being the SDI full screen, HDMI full screen in a mix. That's good feedback, Gary. I'm happy to pass that along. Good news is the product manager is here in the webinar in the chat, looking at all of that. So, he is hearing that directly from you, Gary. So appreciate the feedback, though. This coming back, Mark asked this a while ago. It kind of got buried in the votes here, asking about the RS-232 API stuff again. And I did answer that already because I did see it before, but here it actually came up. Yes. Busy Light one, we answered that one. Um, Daryl's asking a good question here. Can the recording to the optional SATA SSD be accessed immediately after the recording session? Yes, and this is true of all Pearls, and it would be whether the SSD or the SD card, it wouldn't matter. Pearls are recording encoding on the fly. So as soon as you stop the recording, it other than writing a footer for the file, it's done. There's no waiting to finish and encode. It's done. So as soon as it's done, it could be going into your queue for automatic upload or to download basically right away. So yeah, that's no problem at all. Whether that's the SD card or if you populate the SSD. Cameron asking a question. Is the Pearl Nano an improved replacement for the Webcaster X2? Yes, but no. That's a tricky one to answer. Does Pearl Nano fit many of the use cases that a lot of Webcaster X2 customers had? Yes, I believe so. Is it a direct replacement for X2? No, in the sense that Webcaster X2's primary design and intention was to be super, super simple to use in terms of the pairing codes through the Facebook or YouTube APIs and that kind of thing. Nano doesn't really do that. Nano is a much more advanced encoder in the sense that it's going to support a wider range of custom stream types like RTMP, RTMPS, HLS, DASH, SRT, and so on to basically any CDN. It's not limited by APIs the way Webcaster was. At the same time, it has better inputs. It has better audio inputs. It streams and records at the same time. It can stream to multiple destinations at the same time. So is it improved in many over what Webcaster offered? In many categories, yes, absolutely. But is it actually a replacement for it? No, I wouldn't say it is because it's obviously in a much higher price point, but it's also a much, 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 much more capable device. I would argue, and this is not official, this is my opinion. It's just like my opinion, man. I would argue that Nano is more of a replacement to our VGA DVI broadcaster. And some of our partners who are in the chat are familiar with that product. Nano price-wise is in line with that. Feature-wise is much more in line with that. So it is, kind of at that category as opposed to Webcaster. Chip was just asking how to switch from SDI to HDMI in your setup. On Nano, again, we covered this. It unfortunately doesn't have switching. So I see a follow-up question in chat here. So I could stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. Yes, you could if you have the bandwidth to support two streams at the same time, and you're sending out streams that are compatible with both of those platforms, which is totally possible in those examples. Yes, you definitely could. Jim asks a great question here, and kind of expected this one to pop up eventually. We would be looking to use Nano for a point-to-point stream over the internet. So HEVC/H.265 would be cool for less bandwidth. Any roadmap for this? Yes, it is on the roadmap. It is not there at launch, but it is on the roadmap for a potential add-on for Pearl Nano. We know the hardware can do it, but it's not there at launch. So that's something to keep your eye on. And there may be other things kind of around that as well. And that kind of plays into the very next one from Timo, which is, what updates will we see in the future, 4K, HEVC, and so on. So those first two, as I mentioned one of them, but 4K and HEVC are both on roadmaps to be added as add-ons to Nano in the future. Chroma keying yet to be seen, as I mentioned before, as a performance characterization question. Similar people I saw in chat have mentioned NDI, similar like that. Some of these things are performance characterization questions. So those are things that we have to look at. So yeah, there's a number of things that we're planning on in the roadmap. Let's see. This question from Mike: how is source switching accomplished from the front panel display? Well, since switching isn't there, it's not accomplished, unfortunately. So it isn't there at all. Um, I did see a few things in chat here. Would it be possible to stream on a private/public pages or Facebook groups because the webcaster can't do that? Yeah, so again, Facebook made some intentional choices to limit where you can use the API in certain scenarios on Facebook. That's one of the advantages of using an encoder that uses generic stream types like RTMP. Anywhere you can create a live stream post on Facebook where you can say you're using an encoder and get a stream key, that will work with Pearl Nano. So that's something to keep in mind. So that's something to look at. Again, Facebook changes that stuff all the time on a whim. They don't really have necessarily a plan. Let's see here. Frank asking here, is all the encoding settings controlled from the cloud? It could be, but no, it is actually hosted from the box itself, locally from the box. So you could set it and control it from the cloud, but you don't have to. Ultimately, it's done on the hardware itself. Another question popping up in here from Joseph. Will the USB support a USB hub? If you mean using multiple devices, like multiple cameras or multiple storage devices or whatever over that hub, no, it would not mount more than a single device over that interface. So you could use a hub if you needed, to boost power on a longer cable, I suppose, but we would not mount multiple devices simultaneously over that hub. Pricing, we talked about that already. Question here, will it support NDI in the future? Currently unknown. That's something that, again, we're looking at that to see, if performance makes sense and it's something that is possible, then we might add that, but that's yet to be seen. Trick with NDI is that in some cases, we're somewhat limited by the NDI SDK as well. So we, depending on what it does, which is not under our control, depends on how well it runs. And if it doesn't run well, it doesn't make sense to add it. Do see a chat there from Jim Clark just saying, does it run warm? We have it in a case. It is actively cooled, Jim. So, I mean, and it's funny because there's a question that I just saw kind of come in here. Does it have a fan or is it passively cooled? It is actively cooled. It does have a fan. It's not incredibly loud or anything like that, but it is actively cooled. So just keep that in mind. That yes, there is some heat there. I wouldn't say it doesn't run warm. Sure, but is it hot? No. It's been pretty good in my experience so far. Roy just saying screen froze. Just refresh it if you don't mind. I've seen that happen for some people with Crowdcast. Just refresh the page. If someone can just put that into chat for Roy, that'd be great. Andrew's just saying, can you elaborate on the ability under the limitations to set up different layouts? So, Andrew, really the only limitation there is that there is only a single layout. So if you're familiar with Pearl Mini or Pearl 2, where you can use images as backgrounds or even as overlays, and it's the click and drag interface to set up the size and positioning of your inputs, it's exactly the same on Nano, with the exception that there is only a single layout to do that on. So you're not going to be switching between them. But aside from that, no, there's not really, any limitations there in terms of what the number of inputs are and so on. This is kind of a follow-up question. I guess ties into the one I talked about a little bit earlier. It doesn't have the ease of connectivity to sites like Webcaster X2. No, because it is definitely a much more complex and more powerful device, as I already mentioned. So, you would be going through generic RTMP, RTMPS, and so on. And someday, some of those platforms are going to switch away from RTMP and RTMPS towards things like HLS and Dash. Nano can already do that today, so it's a better future-proof option. How can I connect multiple cameras to Nano? So there's two inputs, HDMI and SDI. That would give you two cameras. But if you need more than that, then you would be putting a switcher in front of one of those inputs. So if you need 4 cameras and Nano's basically just doing your encoding, like I talked about in one of the use case slides, that's where you're tagging it on to the end of a maybe a larger production mix, right? So you're doing all of your mixing and switching on a different broadcast system. We're just taking the main out from that broadcast system, and Nano is just doing your encoding work for you. Frank's saying, what's the best way to control the custom layout feature? That's through the admin UI. The admin web GUI, Frank, is the way that you would control that. That is what you can do it. Good question here from David saying, is the background image can be a motion graphic? Not currently today. That's something that we may have in the future, but not currently today. So hopefully someday. Phil asking, what is the latency of SRT encoding? Well, there's the beauty of SRT. SRT, you can set the latency manually, and provided that you have enough bandwidth, and if you have a good connection and your remote point doesn't have an extremely high round trip time, it could be incredibly low. We have a ton of detail in past webinars on SRT, but my SRT, and hopefully my producer corrects me in the background, but my SRT stream into our production system is typically around 200 milliseconds. I could set it lower, but to play it safe, I usually use 200 milliseconds. So it depends on what you have, but it can be very low if you have strong connections. If they're weaker connections, you can intentionally set it higher to compensate, and that's a great strength of SRT. I just got word in my ear. Today we're actually 125. So there you go. Better than I thought. Joe asking, speak to the cloud control and cost for this. So Epiphan Cloud, there's a basic account level that is totally free. There is no cost to it other than obviously it only works for Pearls. With that, that level, you can do a lot of monitoring and a fair bit of kind of control. You're just missing a couple of things like bigger batch actions and remote drill down connection to the admin UI. I was actually going to try to log into my cloud account here in the background and maybe even show you guys a little bit of what that looks like, although this is going to cause havoc for my producers as I totally rescale my windows. And actually, funny enough, perfect timing, my colleague's Nano is online and I could probably sneak and drill into that one. So I'll show you a little bit of it because I also said I was going to try and show you a UI, so I can do both at the same time. So we'll show you that here in a moment here, Joe. I'll answer a couple of the questions until my producers say my screen share is ready. This is a great one. Steven asking, what camera and microphone am I using for the webcast? I use a Sony a5100 connected to my Pearl, and it's doing the stream over SRT. My audio, I use a Blue Yeti Nano connected to my Pearl, and it is doing that for the audio. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen share. I might zoom in on the UI here a little bit so you guys can see it a bit better. This is Epiphan Cloud. We're going off script, guys, going into the weeds here. So this is Epiphan Cloud, and this is my test account. I have a number of different Pearls paired to this, and I can see some information about what's happening with them. So for example, this first one is a Mini sitting in my demo studio in our office. I can start-stop recording. I can start-stop a stream publishing. I can dive a little deeper into that system information and look at what's happening with that device. I can do all of that as part of the free Epiphan Cloud account. I can look at my encoding channels. even dive deeper into those to look at a view. I could even change it from a slow refresh to a high refresh so that I can get a full motion video. I can look at some of my stream settings. I can create new stream destinations. There's a bunch of things that I can do here in Epiphan Cloud for free. I can look at my inputs. I can set up custom alerts for if it goes offline. All of that can be done in Epiphan Cloud for free. What I would have to pay for is if I have a lot of units and I want to do some batch actions like, hey, these 5 units, I want to upgrade their firmware all at the same time. That's something that's available in the paid tier. Or diving down into the admin UI remotely from Epiphan Cloud is available in the paid tier. So I'm actually, my colleague Matt, some of you may know from other webinars and other videos, he's a member of our support team. He has a Nano in his house, and I'm going to, sneaky without telling him, dive into this a little bit. So you can see I clicked on this. It's showing me the serial number of that unit. It tells me it's a pre-production unit. It tells me what his network scheme locally in his house is. Not that that matters. No one can dox him this way, or DDoS him for that matter. Tells me the firmware it's running. It tells me the storage available. It looks like he has a 32 gig card installed in that unit. Tells me it's been running for X amount of time, the system load, the temperature. I can look at the inputs. Looks like he doesn't actually have anything plugged in, so that's good. We're not like looking at weird camera shots of like his piled dirty dishes in his office or something like that. But I could look at the inputs. The other thing I could do is use the remote login, and as long as he hasn't set a password, I can drill down into the full admin UI of his Pearl Nano. So any of you familiar with Pearl Mini and Pearl 2, this looks exactly the same. It's the same layout. It's the same kind of setup. Same menus for the most part from a system perspective. Some of the differences are, of course, that there's a single channel, single encoder here with no ability to add channels. We can look at the inputs, HDMI, SDI, audio, all those are there. And of course, adding an input, I could add either an RTSP or an SRT input. Matt already has an SRT one added here that I suspect is coming from nowhere, but that's how easy it would be. The channel, again, menu structure-wise, looks exactly the same as it does on other Pearls. Primary difference being that if we go into the layout designer, I can't add multiple layouts. There's a single layout, but the designer is a click and drag style setup, just like any others. So, that's pretty much it. Again, audio and all those things are there. And I can add new items. I could add other pictures. He only has the one added here, but I could add those pictures multiple times. So that's, that menu is pretty much the same. The encoding options, basically the same. I can set my bitrate to be whatever I want. Streaming wise, I can create RTMP, SRT, HLS, all these different instances, just like the other Pearl models. And of course, recording wise, it looks like he was playing with CMS. So I'm not going to turn that off, but looks like he had it integrated with a Panopto instance to play with. I'm not going to change that, but you'd be able to change the file types and stuff like that in here as well. You can see there's a bunch of recordings that he's been experimenting with. So again, it behaves basically the same way that the other Pearls do. There's just a few limitations in some of those options, basically. So that's pretty much that. We're going to continue with a few questions here. I'm going to need to roll through them a little faster here. Joe, I hope I answered the question on cloud control there. I hope you saw that. I hope that helps. Next question here. Is the SD card file system limited to ext4? Yes, it is. Currently. Hopefully that changes someday, but currently it is limited to ext4. Roy asking, people are streaming with their phones all the time. What is the advantage of using your product, and what's the advantage of your product versus others? I mean, that's a big question. First of all, yes, people stream with phones all the time. However, as good as phone cameras have become, they're still not as good as real cameras. They're still not great at, let's say you have multiple cameras. You want to create a full production mix. Phones are also limited to things like Wi-Fi or LTE. Not great or stable connections by any means. Using a hardware encoder like Pearl Nano is going to get you those professional video and audio inputs, wired Ethernet for much more stable connection. And honestly, it's a professional box. It's a difference between non-professional versus professional. That's basically what it breaks down to. Are there other hardware encoders on the market? Absolutely. Ones that are similar to Nano, many of them you'll see things like they don't have a front screen, or they don't have options for M.2 SSD drives, or they don't have professional audio. They don't have SDI, or if it does, it's a paid add-on. They don't integrate with Panopto and Kaltura without paid add-ons. So depending on your workflow, there could be a lot of answers to that question. It's pretty broad question, Roy. But we'd be happy to have more conversations with you about that. If you're interested, you can always give our team a call, send us an email, jump on live chat. We'd be happy to engage. Alex just saying, can you show us quickly where to set up ISO recording? Unfortunately, because it is a single channel encoder, it doesn't have ISO recording. You'd be looking at something like Pearl Mini if that's the workflow you're going for. How much power is consumed by PoE Plus? I actually don't have that number off the top of my head. Greg, if you have that, if you could throw it into chat, that would be awesome. I don't have it off the top of my head. PoE Plus is a fair bit, though. It's quite a bit higher than old regular PoE. But yeah, we can get that for you. I just don't recall. I did know at one point, but I've totally slipped my mind. Just hearing in my ear, it's about 25 watts. But there's probably more specific measurements for that, but should be around that. James, I answered this one earlier, but can the USB connection be configured as a USB UVC output? No, it cannot. Chip just saying, please speak to the multiple destination streaming. So I kind of showed that in that UI walkthrough just very briefly. Basically, on any Pearl model, you can create multiple streaming instances, maybe multiple RTMP destinations, maybe some that are RTMP, some that are SRT, some that are HLS, whatever mix you need depending on the platforms. You create those multiple instances, and you can start and stop them either individually, whichever ones you happen to be using at the time, or start and stop all of them simultaneously, provided you have the bandwidth. So when I was looking at my colleague's Nano there, he was encoding at 6 megabit, which meant if I had two destinations, I'm sending 6 megabit each. So I'm sending total of 12. I need to have bandwidth to support that. If you follow our regular bandwidth recommendation rules, take your total output, multiply that by at least 1.5, ideally by 2. That's the minimum upload speed you need available to support it. So if I'm sending 12 megabit out in my example, I need somewhere in the ballpark of 20-ish, maybe up to 24 megabit upload speed stable available. And again, we recommend that just because bandwidth is always variable. It always peaks and valleys. So you could run a speed test 1 minute, run it 10 minutes later, and it's going to tell you something completely different. Of course, and if it's a shared network, other people can impact that. So you want to make sure there's headroom there, so that you don't want to run at 90%. It's gonna cause problems. Stephen asking there, NDI, we've talked about that. Nano does not have NDI. It might in the future, but today it does not. Pearl 2 is the only model in the Pearl line currently that supports NDI. Saw that comment there about using Dante adapter with Mini. That's cool. Yeah, if you want to share that in chat, which adapter you use, that'd be cool. Question here, can I stream 2 streams with 2 languages? on Nano. No, you would need to look at something like Pearl Mini, where you can have two separate encoded outputs running at the same time. A single channel encoder like Nano is not going to do that, at least not currently today. Someday in the future, as other stream types like SRT and others start to gain traction and start to get some things used more, we might be able to have multiple audio tracks in a single stream. But today that's not there. But someday that'll be a thing, and that'll be super cool. And at that point, you would have options to use a single channel encoder. But again, currently not there today, but maybe someday. Joel just saying, I'm most interested in the contributor application with Nano with multiple contributors in multiple locations. What's this workflow? Again, I kind of showed this in my slides earlier, and maybe I can bring my slide presentation back up here for a moment. I know the crop's a bit off, but it looks like this, but would have actually just multiple nanos in this column here. It's like I have it here set up as one, but you would just have 2, 3, 4, whatever number of nanos all doing their thing, all sending SRT in. I'm going to use this fancy thing. So instead of just this one nano, you would have multiple nanos. And then, of course, you could remotely control them like this slide talks about. You could have multiple of this representation. And they would all be feeding SRT into your primary point, aggregated together. So I hope that makes sense. Turn off that pointer. That was weird. But that's basically what the workflow is multiple SRT contributors brought back to a central point, aggregated, and then done something with, usually sent back out, mixed together. Chip just asking compatible SSD drives. As long as it's a SATA M.2 drive, that's pretty much it. Of course, the sizing, I believe it's 2280, but I got to double check on that. But it's pretty standard sizing in terms of brands or speeds. As long as it's SATA M.2, it's going to be fine. We addressed this question earlier as well. Nano be upgradable to 4K in the future? Greg answered this there. It's on the roadmap as a licensable feature for the future. So that's something that hopefully will be there in the not too distant future. Stuart, any thoughts on a Zoom Room device control API triggering a record on Pearl Nano via its API? I haven't really thought about that. I mean, we have an API. Whether or not Zoom Room devices could trigger that API is kind of a different question, to be honest. I'm sure it could be done with some custom scripting, but that's not something that would really be under our control. The Zoom Room would have to be able to trigger our API. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought, but I don't think anyone's really looked at that too much. Tom, if I sent a remote sent to a remote organization site, can it simply be plugged into DHCP network, automatically connect, and send an SRT stream to be able, from that? Yes, it could. There's a bunch of variables to that because networks are networks, but in theory, yes, absolutely. You could pre-configure a caller-listener relationship between Nano being the caller, your home base being the listener. Pre-configure that so that when they receive it, they plug it in, it gets your DHCP address, they start the stream, it makes the call, and that's it. That's assuming they don't have something weird about their network that explicitly blocks that traffic. Most don't, but that's always a possibility. But assuming that that's not a problem, absolutely you could do that. Of course, if you needed to go deeper, that's where something like cloud could come in, or maybe a VPN between sites is also a possibility. Frank, can we see the producer's setup? That's not under my control, but it looks a lot like that last slide I had up, which is basically I have my encoder here. They have remote access to it through Epiphan Cloud. They have remote access to the Pearl 2 in our studio in the office. They're controlling both. There's an SRT link between them, and then RTMP out to Crowdcast for you guys. They have a bunch of other tricks up their sleeves, but I'm not in control to be able to show you that. Sorry. David just saying he missed most of this. Very interested. Can you send me the link to this presentation? Yeah, we can definitely send out, if anyone's interested in getting a copy of the slides, send us an email. We can provide that. This will be posted as a VOD after we're finished, and you'll be able to check that out. We post all of our webinars after the fact on the webinars page of our website. So this one will be up there when we're finished as well. So keep an eye out for that. We addressed that question earlier. I kind of addressed this one earlier from Patrick. Is it possible to send, two audio channels in a multi-stream? And no, not at the moment. Again, they'd have to be two separate full encodes like Pearl Mini or Pearl 2 could do at the moment. And so you'd be looking at those products currently. Christian, where do we position this against YOLO Box? I haven't really done a big side-by-side comparison myself, besides the fact that I personally would not consider YOLO Box to be a professional device. I'd have to go through the spec sheet side by side, but I've seen that they do some cool stuff with their touchscreen. Can't speak to the reliability of that device. I don't know, but in general, Pearl's set up to be a much more professional grade device than some of those devices out there. So, I mean, to be honest, to each your own on what's going to fit your particular workflow. But, if you're looking for a professional grade, reliable, box that's going to have more professional features like professional audio and so on, then Pearl Nano's more like what you'd be looking for there. But again, you have to look at your own needs and make your own decision on what's going to suit your particular workflow the best ultimately. Again, are you ever going to take advantage of SRT? If you are, don't buy a device that doesn't support SRT, right? Those are things to consider. Sure. My producer's telling me in my ear we have a behind the scenes shot of our production for all of you gear nerds who wanted to see the background shot. This is Cameron's command and control settings and his mission control of what he does. So that's what he does. He's got a lot of stuff there, and that gives me an opportunity for you guys to stare at that picture, be jealous, while I take another drink. We're getting close to wrapping up here as well, so. Let's see. So we did show the UI, so I can get rid of that question here. Ivan just saying doesn't want to be a running horse, but perhaps in short, a WebRTC and a firmware update. Unknown, Ivan, at this time. It's something we've looked at a little bit, but I don't really have anything specific on the roadmap for WebRTC exactly. Is it possible to change the XLR connectors to outputs? No, unfortunately. You would end up basically using the headphone jack as an audio output if you were receiving SRT on a Nano. I kind of answered this, but I'll answer it again. Will we know after the webinar where we can view the recordings? Yeah, so we post all of our webinar recordings on the webinars page of our website, epiphan.com/webinars. Timo, can I use the USB port for a cellular modem? Unfortunately not. Phones have changed a lot over the years, and USB tethering without software, being able to change software, load drivers, that kind of thing, has become kind of messy. And so that's not something that's possible on Pearls because you can't change the drivers or load software or do any of that stuff. So unfortunately, no, you wouldn't be able to use a USB tether. What I would recommend is if you need LTE, 5G, whatever, use a external modem that has Ethernet on it. That's what we've done at trade shows a lot. Is we've used an LTE hotspot that has Ethernet on it. It also supports external antennas, so we get a way stronger signal as well. So that's what I would recommend using, and then you can connect Ethernet directly to Pearl Nano and be able to run off of cellular that way. Is the Nano 2-channel audio only? If you mean stereo left-right in terms of its output, for encoded output, yes. But if you needed to bring in multiple inputs like embedded HDMI and XLR, you could do that, but they would get blended together. Is there any benefit to using SRT over a VPN versus an open versus the internet? I mean, you mentioned there, encryption. Encryption doesn't really matter. The bigger thing that would be beneficial on a VPN versus the internet is that chances are you could just use local IP addresses for the connectivity instead of worrying about maybe DNS names or port forwarding and stuff like that. The VPN would simplify that. However, VPNs can also complicate things if they have particular bandwidth caps or more complex setups in how they route from one point to another on the VPN. So is there a benefit? Potentially, but it depends on your VPN setup. But there can be, certainly. Let's see. And Chip closing us out here, and this is going to be the final one, saying thank you for your time and stay well. Same to you, Chip, and everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I'm closing that Q&A panel. If you didn't weigh in on any of the polls, open up the poll panel, weigh in on some of those as well. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you found this interesting and beneficial. Of course, if you have any questions on Pearl Nano or Pearl Mini or Pearl 2 or any of our Epiphan products, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach our support team over email, live chat on the website. You can give us a call. You can, of course, visit our website at epiphan.com. Specifically, there's a product page for Nano. You can, of course, find us in all these places to be able to ask us questions, provide feedback. We'd love to hear from you. It would be fantastic. So again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We're really excited. And in case I didn't mention it, the first units are shipping on February 26th. So if you're some of the people who were super lucky and got pre-orders in, which is a lot of people, I can tell you right now, it's a lot of people, keep an eye out for shipping information because these are actually getting out the door now real soon. And we're very excited to see how all of you use these and where they get deployed. I've had some amazing conversations with some really interesting customers over the past few weeks about how Nano could fit into their workflow. A lot of it talking about leveraging SRT. So again, super stoked to see where that takes us into the future. Be well, everyone. Thanks so much. We will see you whenever our next webinar is. And I don't know when that is at the moment or if I'm on it. So that's great. Thanks again, everyone. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.